Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. This is a brand new show called The Tuesday Crew. I'm your host, Stephen McCutcheon, and I'm delighted to be joined tonight by Gav, Mark and Willie. So I'll go to you, Gav, first. How are you doing tonight and how excited are you to be on this pod?
Doing well and very excited. Can't wait to get chatting.
And Mark, yourself, how's it going tonight?
Yeah, it's going good. Weekend was pretty good. Enjoyed the game. Played a bit of football last night. Dusted off the old copas. Had the game of football last night. So, yeah, looking forward to the night too.
All right, Willie, we know you're over there in New Zealand, so obviously all our best wishes are with you guys over there and doing it tough after the recent weather events. So hope you're all doing all right and you're getting by, and you're very welcome on here, hopefully to provide you a little bit of relief.
Yeah, thanks for that. And it's been a bit of a tough couple of weeks over here. So yeah, things are starting to get slowly back to normal, if you can call it that. But we're just got to take it one day at a time, as it say. But I'm looking forward to the show. I'm looking forward to see what the Tuesday crew can sort of throw out there for the rest of and along with the rest of the guys, because they're creating good content. Hopefully we can sort of marry up with that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So the intention of this show is to do a few more kind of feature type segments, rather than just focus on things that have already been covered on the other podcasts, particularly the weekend review, which is on a Monday, which goes into real detail on the weekend match. And if you haven't listened to that one already, make sure you do. Once we're finished, go and have a listen to the one the guys recorded yesterday, because it's absolutely excellent. But what we're going to do to start with, we're going to talk a bit about our Celtic origin stories, and all of us are going to speak a bit about how we fell in love with the club, and how we started supporting Celtic and our early memories of it. So I'll ask you to start us off, Gav. If you could just tell us a bit about how you started supporting Celtic and where your love for the club came from.
Okay, well, I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland, just across the water from Scotland. And I haven't lived there since I was 18, which was over 30 years ago. In fact, I'm in Malaysia currently, in Borneo. And I've lived in Borneo longer than I ever did in Belfast. But, if you come from Belfast and you're a football fan, there goes one of my lights. If you come from Belfast and you're a football fan, Celtic or Rangers is never that far away. So, they were always there. And to be fair, my interest in football generally and in Celtic in particular has kind of varied over the years, kind of come and gone a bit. Martin O'Neill era was of interest because he went to my school for one reason. We've had a few managers from my part of the world, Neil Lennon and the much adored Brendan Rodgers. But to be honest, in the last few years, I've kind of gone off football a fair bit. Wasn't really watching it that much until a friend of mine here in Malaysia, Scott Olorenshaw, who's a former Socceroo, he started telling me all about Ange Postecoglou, who's in line for the Celtic job, and what we could expect from him. And the way he talked, just got me so excited about it and got me really back into following Celtic properly. So that's kind of my story. And there's nothing better than watching fast-paced, attacking football. And this Celtic team, to me, is a thing of absolute beauty.
So what would be your earliest memory of watching the club then? What would be sort of the first match you can remember seeing?
Well, I suppose when I was a teenager and I started, being aware of Celtic, there was the likes of, Paul McStay was running the show, really, I suppose.
Yeah. A resident of Sydney now, Paul McStay.
Yeah. And, that was a period where there wasn't all that much success, to be honest. A player of his stature, you would have thought would have been able to scoop up far more trophies than he ever did. But, like I say, I left home when I was 18 and I left that part of the world, when I was still in my 20s. So I've sort of come and gone. Like I say, I haven't had that much chance to be following Celtic very closely. There's certain periods I didn't really pay that much attention to, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's great to be back.
And how do you find watching the games up there in Borneo? I take it there's not a local CSC there for you to bowl up to on a Saturday?
No, I think I'm the local CSC. There was one other Celtic fan here who's a Scottish golf pro, and he's just left. So I think it's down to one, unless I open my own pub, and stream the games, which isn't beyond the realms of possibility.
Yeah, it sounds like a good business opportunity there. So yeah, all right. Thanks for that, Gav. I'll go to you, Mark. Now, you could tell us a bit about yourself and how you started watching Celtic.
I'm originally from Paisley. Been a Celtic fan all my life. I think you kind of inherit being a Celtic fan where I'm from, with the family. If your dad, your uncles, your cousins are Celtic fans, it's just natural that it's passed down to you. So I started going to games pretty early on. Started going when I was 3. Never went to too many games when I was young. Started going round about when I was 10 after that. So I was going home and away up until maybe 2003, 2004. Just started going to home games because I went back and played football. But yeah, it's just always part of you, It's something that you look forward to the Saturday or the Wednesday night game, and used to look forward to going up on the bus or the characters on the bus and going to the game, the atmosphere. And that excitement starts at a young age.
And so who would be your earliest heroes in a Celtic strip then?
Well, it's the same as Gab. It had to be my generation, Paul McStay. He was by far the best player on the park for us. I think we were lucky to keep him for so long, and it was unfortunate that he never got the trophies I think his ability deserved. But yeah. Also had Paul Elliott was a favourite of mine. He never played, only played a couple of seasons, but he was class, Moving forward, then you've got the Cadet coming through. You've got Di Canio, Van Hooijdonk, all these that was when Celtic started probably playing really good football. A lot of flair players started coming in. But I think the football we're playing just now, today, is the best we've played and since I remember anyway.
Yeah, through those years in the 1990s where there wasn't a lot of success going, it was still a lot of fun to go to the games, and I still maintain travelling to away games at that time was a lot better than it was after when the success followed. It was always easier to get tickets. It was just a lot of fun, even though you weren't winning that much stuff. It was a good time to be following the club, and it was maybe good to get those bad years out of the way, to pave us for the successful years to follow.
Yep, definitely. Back then as well, terracing used to be fun as well. Before everyone was sitting down, away games, going to Dens Park and places like that, and you'd be in the terracing. I think it just it added to the atmosphere back then. I know we've got safe standing now. It was just come back, and it's probably added to the atmosphere at Celtic. But in the late 90s, when I was going to games, I used to love being in the terracing. I'd prefer to be in the terracing than sitting down,
Yeah, I laugh when I hear them talking about safe standing when you think about some of the places where we stood. I'm thinking particularly of the terracing at Tannadice. Remember that big mad steep terracing along the side of the pitch at Tannadice? If you took one step forward, you fell about 5 metres.
Did they replace that with benches? Is that up where they replaced? Because there's like benches that look like they've taken them out of a chapel at one end, but that's been a while since it's been Tannadice now. But yeah, they might have replaced that with that.
Yeah, no, I think they knocked that down and rebuilt it with a stand. It was always a good day out in Dundee. White's Bar was the name of the pub we always used to go to just up the road from Dens and Tannadice, and it was great crack. So I'll move around to you, Willie. What's your sort of memories of Celtic growing up, and how did you get into the club?
Well, I'm from the Highlands of Scotland, so like right up near Wick, between Wick and Tane, sort of right up on that north coast. So didn't really get to a lot of games when I was younger, but the reason I'm into Celtic is because of like family. To be honest, from the outset here, most of my family are Rangers supporters, and I'm a Celtic man. My uncle's a Celtic man, and my nephew's a Celtic man. And it was kind of like my dad and my uncle playing each other off when I was a wee kid. well, he's going to be a Celtic fan, he'll be a Rangers fan. And sat there one day and had a conversation with another kid the same age as me, a guy called Callum. He convinced me Celtic was the team. So from there on in, I've just been following Celtic. Right. So earliest memory, I can sort of vaguely remember the sort of centenary double, the McAvenny scoring in the final, and I'd seen the old Hampden with the stand. It was all like you say, terraces, and just the sea of green and white there when they did the double and that. Like, I was sort of really sort of remember that. Yeah, just loved watching Celtic the whole time growing up, watching them on the TV just whenever I could. Sit with my uncle, watch the games with him the whole time. Man. Just love everything about it, like, you know what I mean? Sort of heroes, you talk about heroes, that'd be Paul McStay as well, the same as everyone else. I think we're all sort of similar age group here, like, so we all sort of grew up watching Paul McStay. John Collins was another fantastic player too. So, but then you move into the Tommy Burns era and you just sort of see how things have progressed from the dark days when Rangers started doing their 9 in a row to us started getting better and better and better and better. And now you look at us now, we're the dominant force in Scotland, and it's just a joy to watch, like, you know.
Yeah, the Centenary Cup Final was a great day. That was one of my highlights of my Celtic supporting life. It was just brilliant. Really nice sunny day, very hot weather. Went a goal behind to Dundee United and then scored 2 late goals in typical Celtic fashion. And then the late great Tommy Burns, saying, when asked what it was all about, pointing the camera towards the Celtic fans and saying, that's what it's all about. They're there and they're always there. So probably one of Tommy's greatest quotes. So yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, it was. Even Tommy Barnes as a player to watch him. I mean, he lived and breathed Celtic, didn't he? Like, you know what I mean? He just gave 100% every time he was on that pitch. Players like Peter Grant as well. You know what I mean? They knew what it was all about. They just, like I say, they lived and breathed Celtic, like, and it's just great to see us in a position now where we're winning the whole time, too.
Yeah, it's great. So thanks for that, Willie. I'll maybe talk about my own story a bit. Sorry, do you have something else you want to say?
No. I was just saying, yeah.
Okay, all good. So I'm going to take a wild stab at the dark and say I'm maybe a little bit older than you guys, because I started watching Celtic home and away during the sort of early 80s. I've got some memory of being at games in the late 70s, but the first game that I can really have vivid memory of being at was the 1980 European Cup quarter final against Real Madrid at Celtic Park, where we had 67,000 fans in a full house. And to think, that was a European Cup quarter final. And it was the last time we really reached the latter stages of that tournament, and it was so long ago. But it was just an incredible night. Goals from George McCluskey and Johnny Doyle gave us a 2-0 victory. And I just fell in love with Celtic Park under the lights that night. I don't think there's anything like it on a European night. And I just vividly remember the crowd. And look, I was only 11 years old, and I was right down the front of the Celtic end. So if you've ever been right down the front of the Celtic end in the old Celtic Park, you'll know that you don't see that much, to be honest. But I remember the goals going in. I remember the atmosphere. Unfortunately, we lost the away leg in the Bernabeu 3-0. And went out, but we had George McCluskey missed a sitter in the first few minutes, and we had a goal disallowed for offside from Bobby Lennox, which would have took us through. So that was disappointing, but the home tie was something that will live long in my memory. And I was supporting I got my first season ticket for Celtic round about the mid-80s, so 84, 85 sort of time. The centenary year, as you said, Willie, was a great time to support the club. But it was really the precursor to a lot of barren years. And it was really quite bad. All through my 20s was in the 90s. And, although, as I said, it was good fun watching the team, it was the teams, and some dreadful teams were put on the park. And the first glimmer of hope we had was when Wim Jansen arrived. And we stopped to 10 that year. But I think my favourite time, the whole of my time watching Celtic, was the Martin O'Neill years. For someone of my year who's lived through the 90s, it was really the first sign that we could dominate Rangers consistently. And as Chris Sutton said, we put them in their place. My favourite game from the Martin O'Neill era was probably not the demolition derby, which a lot of people say, the 6-2 game, but the game at Ibrox later on that season where we beat them 3-0. We'd already clinched the league and went to Ibrox about 2 weeks later. Won 3-0, 2 goals from Moravcik and 1 from Larson. And I think people don't really remember that we never won at Ibrox at that time. We hadn't won there for about 4 or 5 years. And we won there that day, really rubbed it into them. And that to me was the start of the domination, which has really continued to the present day, bar a few small periods of Rangers' success. So we've been the dominant force since the year 2000, and I mean that's quite clear when you look at the amount of titles that have been won.
Yeah, so you boys have all been season ticket holders for various years down the years, have you?
I was a season ticket holder.
I was a season ticket holder right up to when I came to Australia in 2007. So I had a season ticket right up at that time. In fact, one of the last games I watched before I left Scotland was the Celtic 1, Man United 0, and Nakamura scored the free kick. So that's another one that will live long in the memory. A great atmosphere that night. So yeah, I had a season ticket. Moved here now to Sydney. Been here 16 years, and now it's a long distance relationship.
Yeah, you see, there's a lot of expertise among the people in Celtic Down Under that, I can't go toe to toe with. I've never lived in Scotland, never been a season ticket holder, so I'm sort of an observer from afar, really. But I think that's going to be true of a lot of subscribers to Celtic Down Under. There's fans that are old school, and then there's people who've just come across Celtic very recently. They're new to it because of Ange and all of that. So, I think it's handy, it's handy enough to have the odd voice that isn't entirely as historically steeped in the club as you guys.
Yeah, well, especially with Ange being here now, and I certainly find living in Australia, the profile of Celtic here has never been higher. People are getting into the club who, like yourself, Gav, maybe don't have a long history supporting the team. So you're not alone in that respect. So how have you found it, Mark, up the Sunshine Coast? Have you found there's a lot more people talking about Celtic here since Ange arrived?
Mark?
Sorry, I think my link was going there. Yeah, so we've got a small... Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, mate. All good.
So we've got sorry, it just kind of glitched. We've got a small supporters club up here. We only meet maybe 4 or 6 times a year. It's hard to get the live games, but we've actually got a good group of people. We get between 15 and 25 in for games. It's just your luck. But we have noticed in the last few games, we've actually got Ange Postecoglou fans that come in. So they've followed his career. So there's a bit of that going on. But yeah, so a lot of good guys up here, and it's growing, and it's certainly grown since Sydney. And then we were maybe talking about it more, and we're saying, we're going down. There was guys that we've never known from Sunshine Coast that have joined us, and now they're mates. And we're trying to be a bit more sociable. We're trying to just meet up every so often, not just for a Celtic game, and just a bit more socialising in the Sunshine Coast. But I notice at my work as well, I wear my Celtic jersey now and again, and guys will come up to me as soon as Ange came across. That's all they talk about, or they come up to me and say, Celtic were on the news last night, or I seen the Celtic goals. And there's definitely the profile of Celtic in Australia now is pretty high,
Yeah, and I think the tour that you were talking about there, Mark, down here in Sydney really helped. There's been 3 visits to Celtic since I moved here to Australia, and this was by far the best organised, the best sort of accompanying fan events that came with it, and it was the best attended by people from all over. So I think that really did help raise the profile, and it was really excellent. So what about you, Willie, over there in New Zealand? Have you seen a sort of increase in Celtic's profile there since Ange arrived?
It's hard to say because where I live in Hawke's Bay, there's very little Celtic supporters. I think there's about 5 in total that I know 3 of, and there's another 2 that I've not actually met yet. But there is, like, Christchurch has a supporters club and Auckland has a supporters club, and you see an increase in the number of people on the Facebook pages and that. But it's hard to say with New Zealand because New Zealand's main sport is rugby, like, and everyone here's an egg chaser. So, like, that's the reason I sort of fell into podcasts, is because there's just nobody to talk football with, you know what I mean? And listening to the podcast now is my way to sort of catch up on what other people are thinking and what other people's sort of notions are, ideas, and you try and sort of form your own opinions, balancing off what other people are saying and that. And it's difficult here. Like, I worked in a lot of the industry. I'm an electrician, so I worked in a lot of industries. You were never more than 5 minutes away from a conversation about Celtic when you're working like on an oil rig or something like that. Whereas here, it's just far and few between. So it's hard to say, really. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a couple of comments there from Northampton Tim saying morning, afternoon, evening all, which just about sums it up, I think. So we're all in different time zones. So good morning to you, mate. One from Eddie there, 100%. He's became a massive fan of Celtic because of Ange. So welcome to the Celtic family, Eddie. And I hope you're still a fan of Celtic when Ange moves on. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Might talk about that a bit more later on. So thanks for that, guys. So that gives you a little bit of background of who we all are and how we came to support the club. So we might move on a bit and talk a little bit about the game on the weekend. As I said earlier, we won't go into as much detail as the weekend review did yesterday, but we'll get you guys' general thoughts on the game. So it was Celtic 4, Aberdeen 0. 2 goals from Rio Hatate, 1 from Cal McGregor, and a goal from Lila Bada. All round, in my view, a very good performance, although Aberdeen, probably one of the poorest Aberdeens I've seen in a long time. Probably should have put the game to bed before half-time, but quite a few missed chances and probably not as clinical as we should have been in front of goal. Rio Hatate, absolutely excellent. Definitely the best midfielder in the country just now. And I don't think it's even close at the moment. And really, as Ange has been alluding to recently, the sky is the ceiling for this guy. He can go as high as he wants to in the game. So Mark, we'll start with you. What was your overall thoughts in the game and what jumped out at you?
Yeah, well, I think you've already touched on it. The Aberdeen team is very poor. It's quite clear that they're going through a bad run of form. Managers, obviously, so obviously managerless, but they seem to set up all right, but we just seem to find space all over. They were like really sluggish. We could open them up really well. It could have been so much more at half time if we took our chances. I think the keeper made some really fine saves. I think we had about 10 shots on target, 9 off target. But yeah, it could have been so much more. It was it was a good game to see O in as well. That just he'll need to still find his feet, I reckon. But you could see there was bits and pieces in there where he's just trying to figure out how we play as well and try to fit yourself into how we play. But yeah, Hatate was excellent, and I like Johnson every time I see him.
Yeah, I think you're right about O. It was good to see him starting the match. I was actually quite surprised. I wasn't sure that Ange would throw him in to a starting spot so soon as his early career. But he certainly did well first half. He showed his physical attributes a lot, and so he was quite happy to put himself around a bit. He definitely looks like more of a physical, traditional centre forward than Kyogo does. So it gives us another option in there. And for sure he tired second half, but I think that's to be expected, given that he hasn't been at the club for long. So I think there's more to come from O for sure. But I think he's shown enough early on that it'd be a good alternative to Kyogo if that's what we need. So Gav, what about you? What was your thoughts in the game and main talking points for you that came out of it?
Well, it's kind of what we've come to expect, I think, from Celtic these days. You know, we win 4-0, we miss a hatful of chances, we're never in danger. You know, I can't remember a time where you feel so confident going into every game. Now, we'll come on to whether that's true for the next game coming up, but, you know, I was certain this would happen in the Aberdeen game. And like Rio Hatate, obviously, is the man who's stealing all the headlines, you know. And you know the way they play that Duran Duran song when he scores? There's a line in that goes something like, "And when he shines, he really shows you all he can," if I change the pronouns. And that's kind of indicates to me like that was a great little cameo of his skill set. You know, he quickly closes down to get stuck in and win the ball back. Quick 2 feet shuffle to keep possession. Does the unexpected with a little nutmeg pass. And then he follows up and makes his own luck when the ball breaks to him. And then he rifles it into the corner. So a little bit of everything there in those few seconds. And that was the highlight of the game for me. You know, that was edge of the seat stuff. That's the reason you watch football, for moments like that.
Yeah, his second goal in particular was a thing of great beauty. His footwork,
fantastic.
and he even managed to meg one of the Aberdeen players, and then ran through, took the ball back and scored. I mean, that was, you go a long way before you see a better team goal than that. There was a few other players involved in it as well, but Hatate was just outstanding. So Willie, what about you? Did you catch the game, and what did you think?
I thought Celtic were phenomenal in that first half. I thought we were just cutting through Aberdeen at will. We did miss a half. We should have been 6 or 7 up at half time, in my opinion. I thought we were just all over them. From the second McGregor slotted in the second minute, it's just like, here we go. We're up for this today. And it was a joy to watch. And even in the second half, when Aberdeen went to a back five, just really shut up shop. Celtic were still moving the ball around quite good, and they just kept probing and kept poking away till they found an opening. And like you say, Rio's second was just an absolute thing of beauty. Like, you know what I mean? He just gets away from his guy at the byline, gets the ball into an area, and next you see is him motoring in the box behind the ball, like, ready to take it up and pop it in the net. It was just, I thought it was a great performance from us. Like, really did. Like, as for Rio Hatate himself, man, he just seemed to run out of superlatives. He just seems to get better and better. And this last season, he seemed to tail off a little bit towards this sort of time. But now he just seems to be getting stronger and stronger as the season goes on. It just, hopefully that'll keep going next weekend as well. Like, so it's just, like I say, you just got to just sit back and enjoy it while he's there, like, because that's the kind of form that's going to see him move to the English Premier League. So hopefully not next season, but it certainly looks that way, doesn't it? Like, he's just getting better.
Yeah, I wish people would stop putting together these highlights videos on Twitter. It's not helping our case. Yeah, if you're doing that, anyway, you know anyone that's responsible for that, just tell them to chuck it.
In fact, scratch that last sentence of mine. Rio Hatate, he's not that great. Like, don't come up.
Terrible. He's a terrible player.
Terrible.
Yeah. So this time last year, there was an article attributed to him in a magazine where he talked about being tired and being, emotionally exhausted and physically exhausted, and that's kind of why his form tailed off towards the end of the season. And when you consider he's only really been playing professional football for 4 years, even though he's 25, so he's not a young player as such. But that's probably why he found the going a bit tough last year. But he's obviously had a full pre-season under his belt now, and he's gone from strength to strength. And yeah, he's a wonderful player to watch, and he's worth the admission money alone. What about the sort of couple of moments that Joe Hart had at the back, where one came from a bad pass back from Carl Stalfelt, and it landed at the feet of Johnny Hayes, and fortunately it was Johnny Hayes and not somebody who was half decent at football, or we might have been in a bit of bother. Is that a bit of a concern that we have seen a couple of these things creeping in?
It is possibly a concern, but then again, you're in a game like that where it's probably the only chance Aberdeen had for the whole game, and he's got away with one. Like, you'll probably get away with one in most games he's in. Like, is it a concern going forward? Yeah, I would say it is. Like, if we're wanting to play fast, attacking football out from the back, we need to be able to move that ball quite quickly. And sometimes when you watch pass backs between Starfelt and Joe Hart, you get nervous. You just sit. You'll all see it yourself. You're just saying, "Oh, here we go. Hang on, is this going to be?" And then 9 times out of 10, it's all right. Like, you know what I mean? But then every now and again, you get an instance like that where you're just like, "Oh no." If that's a bigger game, if that's a European game, you've seen it with the Leipzig game, it cost us a goal. Like, so is it something we need to look at? Possibly. Joe Hart is a good goalkeeper. He's a great shot stopper, right? And he's a good presence in the box. It's a big difference to what we had to Barkas before that. So you can't really say he's not done well for us because he has. But there is instances like that when it happens, you sort of sit there and think to yourself, hang on a second here.
And what about
I'm not saying we. Sorry, on you go.
Yeah. So what about Carol Starfelt? I feel as if he's got a mistake in him, and it's almost like won a game. You see, he's gave away a couple of penalties recently just by being caught by a forward coming on his blind side. And is that a concern moving forward? And should we be looking to maybe try Kobayashi in there at some point?
Yeah, well, for my money, if you were to pick two players that are likely to give you a moment of heart attack, Hart and Starfelt are the two. And Starfelt really divides opinion. Half the people think he's greatest things in sliced bread, and the other think he's a bomb scare. And I reckon there's a bit of both. He's an excellent defender, and he does lots of things very, very well. And in a team that didn't play Ange ball, he could be absolutely rock solid. But he does feel the pressure sometimes when he's on the ball. You can see when there's any element of pressure, he's likely to lose it. And when you compare him to CCV, that's unfair, really, on any defender because he's flawless. But yeah, it all depends on how Kobayashi develops. But whenever he was signed, I got the feeling that Starfelt's days were numbered.
Yeah, I think you may be onto something there. I do feel as if that a lot of teams now are letting Starfelt have the ball and pressing McGregor and CCV high up the park because they know that if there is a misplaced pass coming, that's where it's likely going to be from. So, what about yourself, Mark? Any concerns about Starfelt, particularly heading into the weekend?
Well, I think Hart was really unfortunate because that pass from Starfelt was shocking. But yeah. Hart was kind of caught in two minds. He didn't expect the pass. He probably could have done with it better, and we were probably lucky it went on Johnny Hayes' right foot. If that was on his left foot, he'd probably try to ping it. But he played a terrible pass, and it came to nothing. Starfelt, good enough player. There's a mistake in there, but I still think that Kobayashi is probably going to be there or thereabouts, first team next season. I think they're just trying to let him bed in, get him settled. The same way they've done with a couple other players, and hopefully it comes good. But from what I've seen, I've not seen much of Kobayashi, but he looks pretty composed. I think there's definitely a player in there, and it will be, if anything, it's a good competition for Starfelt. He doesn't know he's guaranteed to play every week, so yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Andrew Reid there in the comments said Starfelt on the left is not comfortable, but is a decent defender, and I think that probably sums it up. He's not a left-sided defender, and if he was playing on the right side, I think he'd be a lot more comfortable. But he's not going to get a game there because CCV is levels above. And Andrew also says, "Great chat, lads. Love hearing the background and remembering old games you were at. Hatate was outstanding at the weekend, and he certainly was that." So anyone got anything else to add about the weekend game? No, all good.
All right, really. I think the guys on the Monday crew doing an excellent job of it.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. They do a fantastic
analysis
of the game. Yeah, you're all right, mate. So yeah, let's move on to the game on Sunday, which is the Viaplay Cup Final against the bad guys. Does anybody actually know what Viaplay is, by the way?
No idea.
No.
Betting, is it? In play betting or what?
I don't know. I've got no idea. I remember it used to be the Skull Cup many years ago.
Online, I just googled it.
Streaming service, yeah.
All right, so that's a streaming service. Okay, well, there you go. We learn something new every day. So before we talk about that game, I want to talk a little bit about the banner unfurled by the Rangers fans at Livingston. Or there was actually two banners. One was about Nicola Sturgeon, and we'll just let that one slide because, whatever we say, after the Douglas Ross banner the week before, they're always just going to take the opposite view, and that's what they do. So they can, fill their boots with that one. But this particular banner that they unveiled said, 2 trophies in 11 years, uphold the standards that matter. Now, I think there's a little bit to unpack in that banner, and a couple of things I'd like to talk about. Now, the first thing is, why 11 years? Is this them finally coming to the realisation that their club's 11 years old? Because if it wasn't, then why mention 11 years? So I think they maybe caught themselves out a bit there. And the other thing that was upholding the standards that matter. Now, surely this was referring to an incident the week before, in case anybody hasn't seen it, where Rangers were playing Partick Thistle in the Cup. Thistle played the ball out to allow a Rangers player, Marek Tillman, to receive treatment. But once they took the throw in, Tillman pressed the ball, won it off them and ran through and scored. Now, the Rangers manager then instructed the Rangers team to allow Thistle to score an uncontested goal, to just run up the park and score, basically. Although Alan McGregor did his best to stop them, he just couldn't help himself. Then after the game, Beale was blethering about upholding standards. Now, if he really was concerned about standards, surely he would have done something about Tillman, like either subbed him off or dropped him for a game or spoke out against him, but he didn't. And yeah, I wouldn't mind getting your guys' views on what they were on about with that banner. So, Mark, what did you think?
Yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher, to be honest, but most of their banners, it's actually 5 trophies they've won. So obviously they're not counting the Freakies winning the Lord. It's 11 years, so obviously as most things that come from Ibrox and most of their statements, I just don't understand it. To me, it doesn't make sense at all. Yeah. It's quite laughable.
Yeah, it is laughable, mate. Two trophies. Yeah, as you say, they're obviously not counting the Petrofac Cup, which was, I don't know why you wouldn't count that. It's a very prestigious tournament.
I thought it was 55 league titles, though. You know what I mean? Is it not?
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, 55 league titles in 11 years. That's some goal. Yeah. Yeah. What did you think, Gav?
Well, I think to be fair to Michael Beale, he did the right thing in that game. But if he just left it at that would have been fine, and just said it was the right thing to do and we did it. But the fact that he harping on about, the standards that he's got to uphold at this football club and all the rest of it, he can't stop himself being a motor mouth. So he goes on about that in one breath, and then in the next breath he's in a slanging match with Chris Sutton about his playing career, because that's the kind of standard of behaviour that's expected of a manager. So, I think he's been a bit hypocritical there, and I suspect there's a fair proportion of the Rangers fans who are either secretly or whispering to each other that Mick Beale's a bit of a pain in the neck, the way he goes on, and they might tire of him quite soon. Yeah,
I think the whole upholding standards thing, it stinks a bit of brown brogues, doesn't it? And the sort of all this stuff about turning up to training in suits, and that sort of stuff just sums them up, to be honest. And it's just mental. And I think you're right. Yeah, he's playing to the gallery. To be fair to him, he's won every game since he took over. Sorry, he drew one and won the rest. So he certainly helped him steady the ship a little bit. But yeah, God, he's a pain in the arse. And the Chris Sutton just wiped the floor with him. He's out fighting out his weight division if he takes on Chris Sutton.
There's only ever going to be one winner in that, isn't there? Like,
absolutely, yeah.
That's going to be Chris Sutton.
Is it true that Chris Sutton's going to be interviewing him after the game? Or is that just another bit of a wind-up?
Yeah, look, I doubt it. I think that's probably a wind-up.
I've actually been sent that as well. I think that Chris Sutton is going to be interviewing the managers after the game or before the game, so it would be interesting to see, certainly would.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, Chris Sutton's banned from Ibrox still, or he was advised not to go to Ibrox for his own safety. So, yeah, but this game's at Hampden, so I suppose it's possible. But that would be funny. It definitely would. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the game. So both teams going into the game on a good run of form. Obviously, the last time we played them was a 2-2 draw at Castle Grayskull earlier on in the year. I don't think Celtic played that well that day. And the last time we played them in the cup was we lost the cup semi-final to them last year. And that was a game where Celtic looked very fatigued and just ran out of steam. So I think my own view is if Celtic turn up on the day and play to the best of our abilities and get it right in terms of formation and personnel, I think we will beat them. But it's going to be a very, very tough game, and it'll probably be pretty close. So, Wally, I'll get your thoughts first. What are you thinking about the game, and what's your predictions?
I'm like you. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, Mike. I don't know what state the pitch is in. The semi-finals, the pitch was rank rotten, like, and it's not conducive.
Yeah, I think it's still a farmer's field. I don't think it's going to be any better. Yeah,
that might give them a little bit of added incentive because they can probably play their kind of football on that pitch where it's not good for us. Like, you know what I mean? If you can't get the ball on the deck and pass it around freely, that's not great for us. But I think if we turn up and play the way we have been playing the last few weeks, then I think we have enough to see them off. Like, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it could go to extra time too, if I'm honest. But I think we will have just enough to edge it. My biggest concern for the whole game is the referees more than anything else. I just have no confidence in Scottish referees at all anymore. None. It's all gone. It's completely done. And VAR's just come in and proved it completely that they are so hopeless. It's unbelievable. Like, I don't even think there's bias there. I think it's just complete ineptitude. So it all depends. There's a lot of factors in there that could go against us. But like I say, if we turn up, then I think we'll be having enough to see them off. Like.
So yeah, I think the key question is what time the penalty is going to be for Rangers. So that's going to be the most important question in the game. So yeah, so Mark, in terms of team selection, what you're looking for? Do you think there's going to be any surprises from Celtic, or do you think they'll line up as we expect?
I don't know. I'd maybe fancy sticking Aberdeen in on the right hand side. He always gives Rangers trouble. It may be something that they're not prepared, like they're not prepared for. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe Johnson, Vickers, Starfelt, Taylor, Abada, McGregor, possibly Moy, Maeda, Hitati, and Jota. But there's a few players in there that were that rich in resources. It could be one or two players, and you'd know they come in and still do a job. I think Moy's probably done enough over the last 5 or 6 games to be in with a shout for a start. But yeah, I'd have him beside McGregor in the middle of the park.
So you'd have Gav, should we have Moy in front of O'Reilly, or would that be a decision to put O'Reilly in there just for his energy, maybe?
Personally, I'd have Moy in front of O'Reilly. I think O'Reilly's a player of incredible potential. But I mean, Aaron Moy was playing at such a high level before, he was edged aside there for O'Reilly to come in. And you have to ask, did O'Reilly hit the heights when he was in the first team? He's been getting all these minutes. And, like I say, he's a great player and all, but to me, he's not the kind of player who really imposes himself on a game the way Aaron Moy does and the way Hitati now does. He does tend to drift in and out. That's a bit frustrating for me. So I'd go with Moy coming back in for this game.
Yeah, okay. And has there been any word on whether Moy's fit or not, though? Because he did limp off against St Mirren last week.
Yeah, I've heard he's fit.
Okay.
In fact, so I've heard it's like pretty much a full squad. To my mind, Celtic couldn't be in any better position to go into this game. There's every reason to be supremely confident.
Yeah.
I think it's against Rangers, so sometimes that confidence is maybe not that well placed. I mean, if Celtic do everything they've been doing in the recent past, we could walk this game. But will they show up? Will they get into their rhythm? That's just the big question.
Yeah, I think, certainly I'm scarred enough from the 1990s that I never take any game against Rangers for granted. It's always, I'm equal parts confident and nervous at the same time. As you say, I think we should win the game. We should be good enough to win the game, but there's so many things can happen, not least the referee. And I think, Willie, I think you're being quite generous to the refs there, saying that it's not bias. I think there's definitely a decent argument to be had on that one, but we might leave that one for now. But
certainly the VAR referee this weekend is definitely one that you just don't trust in any way, shape or form, right? And Nick Walsh is another one. I mean, Nick Walsh is the VAR referee when Bernabe was given the penalty against him for the handball. Just well, and this is the guy who's getting the cup final. So I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Having these guys involved when they've made so many mistakes, and then the VAR, it's been a disaster up to now. They're rolling out of it. I don't know whether it's a question of the technology is just not there yet or not. Or whether it's just the guys operating it are useless, but there's got to be some sort of change. I'm all in favour of making the referees full time. I think the fact you've got part-time guys like Dougie Ross running the line and going away to the Scottish Parliament in his afternoon job, I don't think that's right. If you look at Australian sports here, all the refs are all full time, and they're all fully held accountable for their performances. So I think until we get to that point, then we're still going to see these issues week after week.
Yeah. If you're going to make the referees full time, then you need to outsource it to. You need to go to Finland and say, "Oh, your referees are part time. Let's take your top ref over here and give him a full time job and just sack the lot of them in Scotland because they're just terrible." What I mean, League of Ireland, go and see them. Australia as well. Offer one of them guys over, come and referee in Scotland. Give them a bit more money.
Yeah, I'd be in favour of bringing Irish referees over. I don't know what you guys think.
That would not go well.
Wouldn't go down too well with the Lanarkshire Referees
Association. The best referee in Dublin over to referee the weekend game. I'm up for that one. So score predictions. I'll put you on the spot, Gav.
Well, kind of like what I said earlier. I think it's either going to be Celtic walk it and we're all celebrating and it puts the full extent of the Sevco delusion out in the open and we win 3-0, or we don't show up, it's a bit of a grind, it ends up on penalties. So you want me to go for one of those two?
Yeah, just
I'll go for the former.
Anyone will do, mate. It's only a bit of fun.
I'll go for the former. 3-0.
3-0 Celtic.
Glory days.
All right. And Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, well, if it's all down to how we start the game. If we get an early goal and we get it settled, I think that'll take the nerves off, and I think it'll be something like 3-0. But that includes Hart saving a penalty, which I'm sure they will. So if we get an early goal, game 3-0. But the longer the game goes on, it'll just be really, really tight, and it'll be last 10 minutes will be a decider either way. Hopefully for us.
Okay, yourself, Willie, what do you think?
I think it'll be 2-1. I think it's going to be a close game, mate. So I'm going to say 2-1.
Okay, so I'm going to go 2-0. And I'm going to say it's going to be goals from Kyogo. And I'm going to say Aaron Moy is going to play and he's going to weigh in with a goal. And we're going to walk away with the chocolates. So a few comments here. I'll just read out. Michael Ross says, hail from sunny Scotland. And so hail to you too, Michael. Thanks for tuning in. Martin Rogers says we can play against more than 11 men. So yeah, we might have to. Michael again says he thinks Moy will play. And Moy had a wee knock, but I think he will be straight back in. Yeah. So most people are thinking Moy will be in and O'Reilly will drop back down to the bench. Andrew Reid thinks he doesn't see a bad starting. And he only thinks the only choice to be made is either Moy or O'Reilly. So it's Moy who's going to get the nod. Martin Rogers then again says, yep, it's a conspiracy. I think you're right there, Martin. Absolutely. Peter Calero, I think. Why were there no Scottish refs at the World Cup? I think the answer to that is because they're all shite, as Willie pointed out. I think we can draw a line straight under that one. Andrew Reid's agreeing with you, Willie. I think in your comments about the refs. And Northampton Tim says, since we come back from the World Cup, we haven't stopped. So that's to coin a good Ange Postecoglou phrase there. So yeah, thanks for all those comments. So we'll jump into our last section here. Probably got about 10 minutes left, so we'll probably keep it pretty brief. We've got a section called Stick or Twist, where we've got a couple of players who I think are probably Celtic got a decision to make between now and the summer about whether we're going to keep them or whether we're going to move them on. And the first one we'll probably talk about is David Turnbull. So David Turnbull struggled for starts this year. Got a start a couple of weeks ago against St Mirren and was really very poor. He's 23 now, David Turnbull, and he's played 76 times for the club. He was Angie's go-to man when he first arrived. But since the squad's been really strengthened, he struggled for starts. And he's contracted until 2024, so he'll be coming into his last year after this season. So what are we doing with David Turnbull, and do we see a future for him at Celtic? I put that one to you, Mark.
Unfortunately for Turnbull, I think the competition's too strong for him in that area. If he's happy to see out the last year of his contract, come off the bench for the last 20 minutes, maybe scoring a goal, just to see out the game. He's been doing a bit of that recently. I'd be happy for him to stay, but I think it's probably up to him. But long term, I don't see him having the quality to be a first team regular moving forward. I think there's just too much competition in that area. And player has O'Reilly's come on to good form. Moyes come on to good form. It's just he's fallen down the pecking order. So, but yeah, I'm happy for him to stay, see out his contract if he wants, because I don't get too much money for him. But he's a handy enough player for the last 20 when you're trying to see out a game.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? How much money would you get for him with a year to go on his contract? You're probably looking at moving up to a championship club in England at the highest level he would possibly get now, and the money wouldn't be fantastic. So I don't think there's much financial incentive there for us moving on Turnbull. But what about you, Gav? How do you see David Turnbull Celtic future?
Well, as Mark says, I think the writing's on the wall for him, really. But I mean, we'll have to keep some Scottish players, for the European regulations. So,
that's a very good point, Gav. A very good point. We do need, as Michael Ross has just mentioned in the comments, we do need a homegrown quota for European competition.
Yeah. So if he goes, are we going to look to bring in other Scottish players? We're going to sign some Scottish players, or what's the story?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you're certainly looking for players moving up from the B team if there's any there. That's who you'd be wanting to fill your bench with. But whether there's any of sufficient quality or not, that seems to be a bit debatable. So what about you, Willie? How do you see David Turnbull's future?
It's a hard one. Like, he's a good player, he's a decent player, but I was advocating him in the group chats the other week that he's a good player, we should keep him around, and then he gets his chance and he fluffs his lines big time, and it's just like, all that nice words I said about you, and you've wasted your opportunity here. But if he's happy enough to stay around as a squad player, I would keep him, like. But in that instance, he's going to have to know that of the three men in midfield we've got that's going to play each week, he's probably going to be fourth, fifth choice. So is he going to be happy to stay around for that? Like, you know what I mean? He's 23. He could say that I'll sign a new 2 or 3 year deal and I'll just clip my ticket and keep going here. Right? He's handy to come off the bench once teams are stretched and tired. He can, like Mark says, he can get a goal. But for him, if I was David Turnbull, I'd be looking to move on. Like, I would just say, look, I need first team football. If I have any aspirations to be a Scotland star, then possibly I would need to move on. Like, but I'm sort of torn on it. I mean, if he goes, he goes. I wouldn't be too I wouldn't harbour any ill will against him if he does go. If he stays, then happy days. Like, you know what I mean? As long as he's willing to take his chances when they come along, unlike he did the other week, then yeah, I'd be happy for him to stay. It's 50-50 for me. Like,
yeah, my issue with Turnbull is I don't see big improvement in him since he arrived at the club. I think the same sort of limitations he had when he arrived are still evident today. He's quite slow to make a decision. He's very one-footed. He's not really quick enough in his decision-making process to make up for that. So I agree. I think his time is almost up at Celtic. But again, the question is, how much do you get from him if you move him on? Peter Calero in the comments says, to be fair to Turnbull, he has scored a few times coming off the bench. So he has contributed. And that is very true. He is good for a goal off the bench, certainly from outside the box. And you can't take that away from him. So for David, I think it might be time for him to look at a move to another club. Okay, we'll move on quickly just to one other guy who's struggled for game time this year, and that's Alessandro Bernabai, a guy who signed only in the summer, and he's 22 years old. He's only played 9 times this year, and he's got a long contract, so he's not out of contract till 2027. He struggled for game time this year, primarily due to the form of Greg Taylor, but I have noticed in recent weeks he's disappeared out the squad altogether. So are we concerned about Bernabai, and are we looking for a new left back in the summer? I'll go to you, Mark, first.
I don't know. There is potential there for Argentina under 23s. When he did come in, he seemed all right, but I think you need a run of games if you're going to be playing left back. You've seen how Taylor came in and he was kind of a bit lost, and now he's come up to. It took him a while to get into the swing of things, and he's probably one of our best players now. It's a tough one. You need to try and get some game time, or try and prove in training that he's worthy a shot, or you might need to hope for Taylor maybe going out for a couple of games injured to prove what he's got. But I wouldn't be too concerned at the moment. I'd be keeping him around and seeing where he is in the next year. But it is concerning that he's not on the bench. I don't know if he's injured or what, but I think there's potential of a good player in there.
Yeah, I don't think he's injured. I think he's just been left out of the squad. And whether that's just a sort of tactical thing by the manager to get some more midfield players or strikers on the bench, I'm not sure, but it is a bit of a concern for me. Willie, what do you think?
With Bernabe, I think it's his defensive duties that lets him down. I think going forward, he's a great player. Like he watch him when he does get a game. He'll get forward. He'll get some good crosses into the box. Yeah. He'll get into dangerous areas and that. But when it's time to get back to defence, he's nowhere to be seen. I flew over to Sydney from here to watch the game, and the game against Sydney, like I say, going forward, great. But every time Sydney went up the park, it's like, well, that's them moving into the left channel. Where is our left back? Like, and he was halfway up the pitch, sauntering his way back. So I think he's young enough. Certainly is. The age is on his side. So are they working on his defensive duties at the moment in the background? Hopefully, because if he can sort of screw the nut on that, then yeah, there could be a future for him at Celtic. But like I say, it's defensively he's found wanting a lot of times. So
yeah, it concerns me. He gets done by his opposite winger far too easily for me. Even against some pretty poor teams, the wingers are going past them with far too much ease. Gav, what's your view of Bernabe?
Well, the same as has been said. Really, it's hard for us to have really informed opinions on him without enough minutes to go on. But from what we've seen, I agree with what everyone's saying. Maybe he's just one of these players that needs more time to learn the ropes. More time in training, working with the coaches, and I think that's kind of where we're at with him. You don't hear too much negativity coming out about him from the club or anything. I think they think he just needs more time.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning he is only 22, but also the flip side of that is that Odsonne Edouard was younger than that when he was, proving himself to be a Hunswell. We're here and he was taking goals off Rangers left, right, and centre. So age, he's 22. He's not young, but he's probably young enough to give him a little bit of leeway. And Moussa Dembele as well was also younger than that when he was banging the goals in here. So yeah, I think it's a reasonable excuse, but I think maybe we will be looking to sign another left back in the summer, because I don't think at the moment the club would be very comfortable if Greg Taylor was out injured for a extended period of time. But certainly, bearing the mind on a long contract, I doubt if he's going anywhere anytime soon. So the last one on the list we were going to talk about is Mikey Johnson. Now, Mikey Johnson, 23 years old. He's currently on loan at Vitória Guimarães in Portugal, where he's made 13 appearances this season. He struggled under a number of different coaches here to get regular game time. He wasn't helped by injury. He also wasn't helped by Neil Lennon tearing strips off him on the way off the pitch against St Johnstone, where he was being substituted a couple of years back. Pretty poor, that, in my opinion, for a manager to treat a young player like that. But he does seem to have been unfortunate with injuries, and he's now on loan. Now, Celtic did extend his contract by a year before he went on loan, so he's not out of contract till 2026. So he will be back in the summer. So what are we doing with Mikey Johnson? Are we giving him another chance, or are we trying to move him on? Willie, I'll get your take first.
I think it's time to move Mikey Johnson on. I think they only extended his deal just in case he was a smash over at Guimarães and they wanted to pay a bit of money for him. He's a great player. He's talented. There's no denying that. But I think with the emergence of Rocco Vata in that wide areas too, I think it's game time. We've already got Jota, Maeda, Abada, Forrest, Rocco Vata coming through. I think he's going to find very, very, very hard to get any sort of game time at Celtic. So I think for himself, the best thing he could do is move on and get game time. I mean, he'd be a great player maybe in the Championship in England or in the Scottish Premier League, go to Hibs or someone like that. But I think it's time. Not cut a loss. It's just time to let him go, and let him free to try and progress his own career.
Yeah, sometimes a change of club could do wonders for a player. I think Mikey Johnson, I definitely think there's a player there, but it just hasn't worked for him at Celtic. Yeah, what do you think, Gav?
Well, what you just said, I saw an interview there with an expert in Portuguese football who said you can see there's a player in there. And I think everybody agrees there is a player in there. And it's up to him to go to a place where that player can come out. And I can't say it being Celtic with all the competition, basically.
Yeah, okay. And Mark, do you think Mikey Johnson's going to come back and tear it up at Celtic, or is he off to pastures new?
Competing for a place. I'd like to give him the summer to give him a chance. I felt he was unlucky with injury, and he also get kind of put in the deep end a couple of times where he's playing up front at Ibrox himself. Don't know if you remember that, but yeah, I think there's definitely a player in there. But probably move him. He probably will move on. But I'd like to give him the summer to give him a chance to see where he's at, and if that's what he wants to do. But he might have already made his decision that he's moving elsewhere. But yeah, give him the summer, give him a chance, and then see where he's at.
Yeah, now Ange did say before he went out on loan that he did see a player in Mikey, and whether or not that was just Ange being Ange to give him a bit of a pat on the back before he went on his loan, I'm not too sure. Michael Ross in the comments just says, sadly, MJ just isn't good enough for Celtic. Andrew Reid says, there's something about Mikey that I want to see succeed at Celtic, but time is running out. And I think that sums it up for me. A guy who's come through the youth system, through the academy, you always want to see them making it at the club, but time has to be running out for him. Jared says, if Bernabei is to leave, who do you replace him with? I'd look at Jordi Boss at Melbourne City. Could be a decent backup for Taylor. Now, I'm going to show my ignorance of the A-League and say I don't know who Jordi Boss is, but has anybody got any comment on him?
No, but I think it's definitely a market we should be looking at more. There's obviously the connection with Beaver down here in Sydney that everyone knows about Ange and Celtic. I think we should be looking at the A-League more for more players. We're obviously dipped into the Japanese market and we're doing really well, but there's definitely players here that could compete at Celtic.
Yeah, I was down at the Sydney Derby last weekend, and I was watching closely Philip Neuvenhoff of the Western Sydney Wanderers, who was linked with a move to Celtic. In fact, there was a rumour went around that we'd actually signed him and loaned him back to the Wanderers for the rest of the year, which turned out not to be true. But he looked a player. He looked a really good player. It's somebody probably we should be keeping a close eye on. I think you're right, Mark. It's definitely a market we should be looking at for sure, because we've showed we're willing to go places where other clubs aren't, looking for value, and I certainly think we'll find it here.
Yeah, the other worry is that some big club comes in with an offer for Greg Taylor. That would put the cat among the pigeons.
See, there you go again, Gav. Please stop saying that. Nobody's going to bid for Taylor. He's rubbish. I think that's a reasonable concern. As obviously, it's something we have to accept our place in the football food chain and understand it. But the EPL teams are going to come sniffing for our players, and it's going to be hard to turn down for them and for us. So yeah, it's something we just have to deal with, I guess. So
I think we're in a good position though, with it all. Are we not? The way Ange operates the transfer system, we're in a good position. If somebody is going to go, he will probably have somebody in line to come in and replace them. So
yeah, absolutely. That's the model, mate. That's what we have to do. That's how we have to achieve success, and we just have to try and perfect the model, buying out of emerging markets and selling at a big profit, and and moving on from there. All right, so we've just ticked over the hour, so we'll probably wind it up there. So I'll probably just go around and ask for you just for some final thoughts about what you're looking forward to for the rest of the week, or anything to add. So Gav, I'll start with you.
Well, my final thought is obviously the days are counting down to the big game, and we might be on the brink of absolute glory. If this game goes our way, we'll put them to the sword. We're looking at 2 trophies in the bag pretty much, and happy days. So sometimes, you're nervous about things because the outcome could be bad, but other times you're nervous because the potential outcome could be so good if everything goes well. And that's sort of where I'm at. The prize is so big this week that I'm very much looking forward to it and dreading it in equal measure.
Yeah, I know the feeling. That's pretty much how I feel. And Mark, final thoughts from yourself?
Yeah, looking forward to tomorrow night's pod, the preview for the weekend. Looking forward to the weekend's game. I think it's got potential to be a really good game, but I just hope that the Monday's pod aren't talking about VAR and refs, and we're actually talking about how good the game was, because it has the potential to be a great game, and another trophy in the bag, and it'll maybe quieten down that manager that's got a lot to say over at Ibrox, so I might calm him down a bit, because he's been running his mouth for quite a while.
Yeah, I hope the Monday review is talking about a Kyogo hat-trick, but we'll live in hope, mate. What about yourself, Willie? Final thoughts?
I'll just take the final thoughts to say well done to all the volunteer workers in New Zealand Defence Force. All the communities are mucking and helping each other out here in a time of crisis. So well done to you all. Fair play.
Yeah, I think we'll all second that, Willie. So yeah, my final thoughts are I don't know if anyone likes rugby league, but the rugby league season just about to start. If you fancy a rugby league podcast, go and check out one called the Tragic Rugby League Report. It's an excellent podcast, and I do have some skin in that game because my son hosts a podcast. And he's also a massive Celtic fan. So if you're a rugby league fan and a Celtic fan, go and check out the Tragic Rugby League Report. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I had a great time tonight, and I'm looking forward to doing it again next week. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. Thanks for all who commented. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel and hit the notification bell. And like and subscribe, or even if you just tell your mates how much you like the show, then every little bit helps. So, hail, hail, and we'll see you next week.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.